Welcome to Bear With Us, the podcast where two women bravely explore the High Line.
One charming town and quirky event at a time.
We're here for the people, the stories, and the small moments that make this place special.
And don't worry, zero bears.
Probably.
Welcome to Bear With Us, the podcast brought to you by Bear Paw Development. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Julia. This podcast is where we explore all the events, projects, and happenings shaping life here in North Central Montana.
Today, we're thrilled to have Jeremiah Robinson, the Director of Paleontology at the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum in Malta. And we are in Malta recording this.
On site.
We are off campus. This museum is a true gem for our region. It's home to incredible fossils, hands-on programs, and now some big plans for the future, thanks to a recent Opportunities in Rural Economies grant.
We'll be talking about what makes the museum unique, the amazing programs and discoveries happening there, and what's next as the museum looks to expand its impact across our communities.
Jeremiah, welcome to Bear With Us.
Hello, welcome.
Now, before we begin, there is one question we need to ask you that is the utmost important question that we ask all of our guests, and it's our bear-related question. So if you could name a new dinosaur species after a bear, what would you call it and why?
That's a great question. I would probably go with Ursophonius, which would be Latin for terrible bear, because I would think it would be hilarious to name like some type of small plant-eating dinosaur that.
That is so funny.
First of all, you did not get that question ahead of time. So the fact that you pulled out Latin for terrible bear out of it, that is impressive.
I can pull out Greek roots, and that's about it.
So as we get started here, Jeremiah, let's just start with you and your journey that brought you here. So can you share a little bit about your background and what inspired you to pursue paleontology?
Yeah, so ever since I was a kid, I just really loved the idea of paleontology, dinosaurs, and biology in general. And that just kind of segued into a career in it. So I got a undergraduate degree at Baylor University in Texas, where I'm originally from. And then I moved here to Montana to go to Montana State University, go Cats, in Bozeman, Montana. Um, and am working on a master's degree currently. And through that, one of the other students I was working with, who has since gotten his master's, worked here at the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum and said that I would probably love to work here. And thus I applied and got the job and am now here in beautiful Malta, Montana.
That is amazing.
Now, are you here on a permanent basis or is this like a part of your studies or?
So it is a kind of a summer job, a really cool summer job where I get to be director of paleontology, but a summer job because the museum is open from May to the middle end of September. And then we kind of closed for the season, so it's seasonal right now, and because it's a seasonal job, I'm able to take it and kind of be able to do that without having to worry about it cutting into much of my own work.
So
That
your
is
time
so
here in
cool.
Malta is coming to an end here pretty soon.
It is, unfortunately. But while I'm here, I'm having a great time. It's been wonderful. The community is amazing. The amount of scientific literacy that you find just from people coming through has been fantastic. The amount of interest in prehistoric life has been great. So I've enjoyed it thoroughly, and I really wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's amazing. What's the biggest difference you've noticed between Texas and rural Montana?
The weather.
Fair.
Actually, oddly enough, in the summer, it actually feels a lot like home. It's very much like, Central Texas, which is where I'm from, which kind of makes a lot of sense. Um, it's more so, I would say that, the colds get way colder, obviously.
Just a little
Um,
bit.
and then, from a kind of standpoint of, like, cultural standpoint, the only difference is that, it's just a bit smaller of a town population, but, like, the actual kinda cultural feel, I tell people all the time that, like, Texas is warm Montana, and Montana's kinda just cold Texas. They're actually pretty one to one on, like, generally how you feel just with the difference of temperature.
And different of accents. Got
Ye
that too,
well, yes.
for the most part.
That's really awesome. So, what has been the thing that you most enjoyed about working here at the museum?
The thing I think I've most enjoyed about working at the museum has been being able to work with an amazing amount of specimens that I had never even like considered would be at this museum. This museum has fantastic stuff. Everything here in the exhibits, in the collections has been wonderful to work with, things that I would have never gotten to think I'd ever see as a paleontologist even. Um, I also, working at this museum, I found my first dromaeosaur or raptor dinosaur tooth ever, so that was super cool. So that's another big thing that's up there. But being in the position I'm in, director, I've also filled in a lot of other positions, so, like, museum curator, for the paleontology, the collections manager back here, the lab and field manager, so having to put on a lot of different hats is great for a resume, but it also gives me a lot of, like, very valuable experience within the field.
That is
And you mentioned something because a lot of, obviously people who are listening to this can't see us, but for once we have ventured out of our cozy little office studio and Julie and I are interviewing you surrounded by dinosaur bones. Like,
Yes.
I have never seen this many dinosaur bones, and I think it's fascinating. My absolute, like, favorite movie of all time is Jurassic Park.
how's
Always
that
has
comforting to
been.
you, by the way?
I know, I know. I would fall asleep to it. I love it. Love Jurassic Park. And so the fact that you found a raptor tooth is really cool. A snow raptor claw, but
Oh,
Yeah, well, that's here in collections, so
so what is your favorite like fun fact about dinosaurs or like surprising thing that I mean, obviously you know Latin off the top of your head, but what's your favorite like dinosaur related fact that people always get a kick out of?
I think a lot of people really like to hear when I tell them that in geologic time, T-Rex is closer to us than it is to Stegosaurus. So that means that, like, dinosaurs at the very end of the age of dinosaurs in the Cretaceous period would have seen the fossils of dinosaurs at the end of the Jurassic period coming out of the ground. There would have probably been, like, a Triceratops that walked past a Stegosaurus or a T-Rex that walked past an Allosaurus at some point in history, and actually probably a couple.
So are you saying that they didn't live at the same time necessarily?
No. Um, Again, when we talk about geologic time, a lot of people kinda have, like, this, like we say millions of years, and people have that as a hard thing to kind of keep in the scale. So I'll put it this way, it's the difference between a T-Rex being $66,000,000 and a Stegosaurus being $145,000,000. And
I
that
had
helps
no
people put it into
idea.
scale.
I
Yeah.
know. It's like
Wow.
that fun history fact where Cleopatra lived closer in time to the first Pizza Hut than she did to the building of the pyramids.
Yeah.
I hate this.
Yeah, it's like time is such a strange concept when it comes to history. It's interesting. That's a fun one. It got a reaction out of both of us when you said it.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I guess I just figured that all dinosaurs just lived at the same time and we're all hanging out together because that's what the shows all show. So
Yeah.
that's cool. So, if you could bring any extinct creature back to life just for a day, which one would you choose?
Please not one that'll eat us.
I would bring the thylacine. It's we call it the marsupial lion. It just recently went extinct a couple of, decades ago and really shouldn't have. It was really important for, Tasmania and, or sorry, it's the Tasmanian tiger. Marsupial lion is a different animal. It was really important for Tasmania and Australia as, like, their main predator, and now the dingo's kinda taken over, but the dingo is technically an invasive animal. Um so it would be nice to have more than just the dingo terrorizing the the local population, and the nice thing about Tasmanian tigers is that they are super afraid of humans, or were at least. So they're an animal that can help with population control, but not be too much of a threat to humans other than, like, maybe a couple chickens and other farm animals, so something that I think that we could, like, deal with having back.
I saw something on the news that I feel like should have gotten more coverage in the last couple days that the white rhino is now extinct in the wild.
Oh no,
Yeah.
They've been declared extinct
that's so sad.
in the wild. So there must be like one in captivity that's maybe just not breeding. I don't know.
There are a couple in captivity, but yes, they seem to have gone extinct in the wild, which is horrible.
Yeah, it's
Um, you always hate to hear something like that, especially when, we have the ability to kind of conserve these animals. That's why museums are in some ways so important because it reminds us that species do go extinct. And so to keep the things we have currently alive as we can keep them, it's awesome to see any animal in a museum, and I will always advocate for that. But it's also really cool when you can save a species and not have to see them only in a museum, when you can actually see them in moving, living color. So hopefully, the white rhinos we have in captivity can kinda help them bounce back, but, currently,
It's
it's kind of
rough.
rough for the white rhino.
That's very sad. So with paleontology, obviously it's not just all dinosaurs. What all have you gotten to study?
So I do focus mainly on dinosaurs, but like you said, it's a very large field that covers everything that has ever lived and got preserved in the fossil record. So I've done invertebrate paleontology. We actually just before we started recording here had a couple of local people come in and show us some invertebrate fossils, which were fascinating. And I've done a lot of work with that. The first vertebrate fossil I ever found in my life, as much as I love dinosaurs, was a prehistoric mammal tooth. It was a molar, and that is still one of the highlights of my paleontology career because I never expected to ever find something like that, so that was very cool.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, so now that we know a little bit more about you, let's talk about the museum itself. So, for those that may not be familiar, what is the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum and what makes it unique?
So the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum, used to be a kind of field and lab observatory style research area, in a different building. And from that came a lot of really cool dinosaur fossils and a lot of really cool paleontology and education material for the general public here in Malta. And so we were able to then get a building, um, and become a full-fledged kind of nonprofit museum. So that is currently where we're at. The mission for the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum is really to be able to preserve the past, the prehistory of this area of Phillips County, Montana, and be able to share it with the present and future generations of people who live in the area. So that there is not only just scientific education and historical kind of merit here, but there's also kind of this moving forward of generations, and taking this knowledge and all these accumulated cool things that lived in the area and being able to show them to the people of the area for generations to come.
Kind of a cool thing about the museum is not just the fact that, it's here and it does all of that, but it's also a part of the dinosaur trail. Now, I think people outside of Montana don't always associate Montana with dinosaurs, especially like eastern and northern Montana. But it starts in Glendive, correct? And it just kind of works its way along the High Line.
Yeah, so there is the Montana Dinosaur Trail, which is one of the coolest things I've ever heard a state do, from a scientific education standpoint, where we go all the way from Glendive, through Bozeman, past Bozeman to Bynum and Shoto, Montana, and there is just a string of museums that all kind of have dinosaurs, but also a lot of them have cultural history as well and teach the importance of understanding the fossil record within science and, within just general education of the area of Montana. It's awesome because it means that a lot of local, towns get to put up a dinosaur museum if they have the fossils in the area, and then get more commerce going through, so it's a great way to get commerce through the state, but it's also just, again, something that is fantastic for people to be able to see. As you said, Montana has a lot of dinosaurs, but not a lot of people know that until they start the dinosaur trail or until they get to the state and go to one of the museums and learn about how much stuff there actually is out here.
And how many like important dinosaurs have been found in Montana? I know that like some very significant fossils have been discovered like in our backyards, which is crazy.
Yeah, a very decent amount. So, very recently, we actually had someone come through the museum who found, she was just a lady who walked in and recognized one of the fossils we kind of show off here and goes, "I found that dinosaur," and it was, MOR 980 Pex Rex, also known as Montana's T-Rex, so the one that exemplifies the entire state of Montana, and was able to tell us the story about how, as a teenager, she went out on a fossil excursion, got to dig up near Fort Peck area, um, heard that there was, like, one of the fossils she dug up ended up being a T-Rex and was just like, "Oh, that's cool," and then never really heard
Nonchalant
much
about
else
it, like,
about
"Oh,
it. Yeah.
who doesn't find a T-Rex as a
Accidentally found a
teenager?"
T-Rex.
Exactly, and to find one that was, like, around 60 to 65-ish% complete,
Wow.
and there's a cast of the bottom jaw here at our museum. There is a very cool replica at the Fort Peck Interpretive Center, and there is the actual full mount at the Museum of the Rockies, at 3 dinosaur trail museums at least that I can think of off the top of my head that show off this specimen and how cool it is. That's just one of the many, many, many cool specimens that have been found here. Our own museum boasts Roberta, who is a Brachylophosaurus, a duck-billed dinosaur, um, that is extremely complete. We have basically everything of the body, and we're only missing the tail for the most part, which we even still have a couple of pieces of. Uh, this dinosaur has the hyoid, which is a bone in our throat that rarely gets preserved in modern humans. So having that on a dinosaur is fascinating. That's just one of the many cool things that have been found in just this area of Montana, but the entire state, everywhere from Bynum Shoto, where you have Egg Mountain, and the whole idea of how dinosaurs are really taking care of their young coming from Maiasaura, which is our state dinosaur, by the way.
We have a
Uh,
state dinosaur.
I
we do
didn't
have
know
a state
that.
dinosaur. The state dinosaur is Maiasaura. It's a duck-billed dinosaur, a relative of our Brachylophosaurs. Um, and the name Maiasaura means good mother lizard. So we named it
So
so
cute.
because there were so many egg clutches that it was taking care of, that we were able to ascertain that this animal does a very good job of taking care of its young, and so good mother lizard.
I love that you referenced her as Roberta because just sitting here, like, you've named we have a Ralph. I can see is it a Giffen?
Giffen, yeah.
Giffen, yeah, like, that's adorable.
Who gets to give them those names? Like, I know that, they have the fancy names that get given to them based on, maybe what they look like or what they did, but who gets to give them
Who named
cute
Roberta?
little names?
Well, the research groups that find them, a lot of the time, they get to name whoever was kind of on the group gets to kind of come up with a name for it. So, one of the cool ones, Roberta, so named because the guy who was working with the group, our group, which is actually the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum group in 2002, his name was Robert. Um, at the time, they were thinking they were seeing markers of a female dinosaur. Uh, Now we know that that's probably not true. We're not actually sure
It's like your
if
cat.
Yeah, I have
yeah.
a female cat named Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's really hard, especially in the fossil record, to tell what that is. In fact, we only think we know one dinosaur we can actually confidently tell what that is. So, uh they were like, "Well, we'll name it Roberta, because, Robert found it, but we think it's a female, so we'll name it Roberta." Very similarly, even with our fancier scientific names, one of the fossils we have on display here, a cast of the skull of Necononectes, a type of, aquatic reptile from the age of dinosaurs. The species name is Brati because Dave Bratt found it. The guy
Oh,
who found it was a bow hunter, found it on the Charles Russell Wildlife Reserve, and, scientists were so tickled pink that he had found it, given it to the proper authorities, like the areas, and helped with the excavation, that they gave him, like, the species name of this animal in scientific literature for the rest of history. For as long as we are doing paleontology into the future, will always be Brati. It will be named after him.
is that like the dream of every paleontologist is to find something and have it named after you?
Yes, but you can't name it after yourself.
Ah, someone else has to name it.
Someone else has to name it because it's too cocky to name it after
Okay,
yourself.
that's fair.
That
That's
is
fair.
fair. So, looking around, who is the star of the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum? Who do people come to see?
The most? Oh gosh, there's a lot of stars actually. The highlight star for me, especially, would be Malta Ceratops. Um, unofficially named right now, but should be getting its official name at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Maltaceratops is named after this city of Malta because it was found a little bit south of here in Phillips County. It seems to be a new species of ceratopsid dinosaur, so a relative of Triceratops, and is named after like this city. That's the coolest thing ever.
That is cool.
That's
So
so amazing.
definitely looking forward to that paper in the future in scientific literature, but also I think that is just a like star of the museum. Um, but we also have a lot of other stars. So there's the big Triceratops herb. Uh, we have so many Brachylophosaurs with all different names and all their own different types of charisma. So there's a lot going on there.
I love that you say charisma. That's awesome. So, how does the museum contribute to the community and, I mean, the region in general, both culturally and economically? I know you touched a little bit on how it, is kind of an economic driver and helps kind of with tourism, really. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yes. So anecdotally, just like earlier today, I had a couple of tourists come in through the museum and be like, "Well, where's a good place to go eating after?" And then you get to tell them about all the different local restaurants and like, "Oh, if you're looking for breakfast, go here. If you're looking for dinner, go here."
You can name
And
drop a restaurant if you
oh,
want.
if I
Yeah.
want to name drop the restaurant, well, two of the ones that I really was encouraging the people to go to because of the way that they were describing what food they wanted, were the Tin Cup, which is by the golf course here, and then also the Hitchin Post, which is very close to the museum. And I was like, oh, if you want something that's like not too far of a drive, it's literally just a minute up the road here. So we love being able to talk about the different places, but also again, being a museum that 42 out of 50 states have visited. We do keep track on a map here. And also having different people from Canada, from Europe, from even South America come through and kind of visit our museum. It does add a bit of tourism to where, again, you can tell people about these are the local places to stay, these are the local restaurants, these are places to hit while you're also on the High Line. If you're going through the Dinosaur Trail, these are some of our favorite places to hit on the way to like a museum like of the Rockies or to a Carter County Museum in Ekalaka. You get to share so much about not only our region, but also statewide, just kind of the different cool things that are in these different areas, especially in towns that don't always see a lot of the commerce that some of the bigger towns like Billings or Bozeman or Helena get to see. So it's really cool to be able to be a part of that and to tell people that. But also, even just locally, we do kids digs, we do different events for the community, and they get to enjoy the museum and enjoy different things. But that also brings in food vendors, that brings in people who want to advertise their own different events coming in throughout the state and throughout the different times of the summer. So we're able to bring a lot of kind of economic commerce through our area from outside and also being able to kind of bolster our own commerce and the commerce of other businesses here in town and in around the local area of Phillips County.
Jeremiah, I feel like you're answering the questions before we ask them. And I love this. You're making our job so easy because I was literally going to ask you after this, like, can you go into more detail about some of the programs that the museum does for the community? I know that you guys do, like you said, a lot of digs, a lot of like learning opportunities and things like that. Can you really kind of dive into that?
Yes. So our big learning opportunities, we have kind of three programs that we always advertise. That is during the summer, we have kids digs. So we take children from around the area. And also, we sometimes get kids who will literally fly in from out of state to come and kind of participate with us for a day. We take them out to the Hammond Ranch. The Hammonds are a wonderful family here in Phillips County who have a plethora of fossils and have been so gracious to allow us to come to their land, take kids there, and look for dinosaur fossils. And now, what's cool about that is that the kids get to have both the lab and the field paleontology experience. So we take them out in the morning, they get the field experience of finding a fossil, um, getting to do a little digging for it sometimes, or even this year we had one of the local girls actually found a tyrannosaur tooth in between her feet as she was looking around
Oh
for
my
other
gosh.
fossils. And that was the first time she'd ever found a dinosaur fossil, and so that was cool to be able to see. But they get to go out into the field, have that experience, and then they come back here to the museum and get to take down data and have the research paleontologist experience of taking measurements on the fossil they found, and then being able to write down an information slip and have that kind of here at the museum. So again, they also get to immortalize themselves as like, "Oh, I found this fossil and I got to take down this data," and we teach them about, like, comparing the animal to other animals to kind of figure out what it is. We get to teach them about, like, "Oh, like, make a sketch of it so you know the general shape and the size of this animal." So, that's kind of how the children's program has gone, and it's been wonderful throughout the summer. Sue Frary is a Montana native who, although she lives out of state right now, will fly back just so she can be able to kind of lead these kids digs and have this wonderful experience. Another thing we do here at the museum is our just kind of museum explorer experience. So we take often kids again, but anyone can really do this one, and they get to come in and get a extended guided tour from someone like myself, a director of paleontology, of the museum exhibits, where I get to just give them all the lore drops that I can about each and every fossil. But then they get the rare opportunity, which might not seem too rare to you all because you got it right now, but the rare opportunity for the general public to come back into collections and really get to see like a lot of what I call this bone library, this public library of bones that we have, and tell them so many different things about the evolutionary and also just the life history of dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals that have lived here in Montana. And then, kind of our final thing, and the thing that we are really excited about because it's actually going to be happening next week, the last of our adult digs. So, not just kids. I know a lot of people are excited for their kids to be able to go on the kids digs, but our adult digs are also really cool. There are so many people who've said like, "Oh, my dream since I was a kid was to do something in paleontology," and they come out with us and get to participate as we dig out in the field, and we teach them the practice. We teach them everything about how to take the data, how to um, best excavation processes, even how to like identify a fossil from a normal rock. And they get this once in a lifetime experience to dig up a fossil, to help us like plaster jacket it, to help us be able to get it to the museum, and being able to go out there, have this once of a lifetime experience, and find a fossil, help us to preserve it, and be a part of that process. Again, we were talking about getting to name things. If you find a quarry site, if you find a fossil area, you get to name it, which has been cool for a lot of our participants. And also just getting to see things that they never thought they would ever be able to see in their life has been absolutely wonderful. So it's something that we push. We do 3 of them through the summer, 1 in June, 1 in August, and 1 in September. And so if anyone out there listening is interested, just look on our website and you will be able to find the information for that.
I'm interested.
I know. Get out of the way, kids.
Kids are
The adults
uninvited.
are here. We're here to find the dinosaurs. I need to bring my 6-year-old up here. I think she would really enjoy the little digs, but Mama also wants a dinosaur.
I want to name a site after something.
I feel like I would name it something silly because I could.
Why not? Yeah. I love how passionate you are about this. Like you have so much knowledge, you have so much just like energy for paleontology. Um, so what are some exciting things that are happening in the world of paleontology, either here in Phillips County, in Montana, or in general that just really gets you going?
So there's a lot of really cool paleontology happening around Montana. In Phillips County, we've got a lot of BLM land here that this museum, our museum, the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum, will be kind of checking out, not so much this summer, but next summer. Some really cool stuff that we'll be able to kind of look and get some deals with landowners. Like I said, we've been doing our adult digs, so we've found some pretty cool things up a little bit north of Havre, actually. So just not too far from
Cool.
you guys. Um,
Really quick, I do want to say I love that the people that let you do the kid digs are the Hammonds. Are any of them named John? Are any of them gonna start an island full of
Uh,
dinosaurs?
those are
Sorry, you can
secrets that
keep
I have to
going.
keep for myself.
Did you just do Jurassic Park?
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, it is my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good pull right there. Um, Also some really cool stuff just kind of going around the area of Montana even. Um, I know up near the Bergtaw Ranch, which, I can't remember if it is still here in Phillips County or right outside, there has been some research by Denver Fowler, who was a pretty famous paleontologist, on some of the duck-billed dinosaurs and a controversially new species of tyrannosaurid, Daspletosaurus wilsoni. I actually got to be the TA of the guy who named it, so it's pretty cool to be able to know him, and his name is Elias, and his research. It's kind of controversial because some people are arguing that it's not a new species, it's just a really different form of an older species. But either way, it means that there's some pretty successful Daspletosaurs in the area. Daspletosaurus being a large tyrannosaurid, so an earlier ancestor of T Rex. Um, Another cool thing is we were talking about earlier ancestors just a second ago. The hadrosaur, duck-billed dinosaurs, have earlier ancestors called iguanodontids. They're so called because their teeth look a lot like the teeth of modern iguanas, and they actually had thumb spikes, which is pretty cool. Iguanodon actually being the second dinosaur to ever be named. So, a really, really important lineage in paleontology. Just in Lewistown, there seems to be something related to the iguanodontids kind of coming out from the Museum of the Rockies. So we're really, really excited to hear more about that. And around the state, there's always people here in Montana and even coming down from Canada because they're greedy. That's a joke, mostly. Um, to do a lot of field research and paleontology, so there's always cool things coming out of this area. In fact, I believe the Bear Paw Shale, so Bear Paw development, Bear Paw Shale is what we call the marine deposits here, recently had a Tylosaurus, which is a giant marine reptile related to our monitor lizards and snakes today, come out of the area. New species of one. So there's always really cool paleontology happening in this area.
These are all things I just didn't know, I mean, anything about.
I knew
It's
we had
amazing.
dinosaurs.
Yeah, I did too. I just didn't realize, like, how common they were up here and just how much work's actually being done. So this is fascinating to me. It's really cool.
I think we should pivot to maybe something really exciting that's happening for the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum. That you guys recently were awarded an Opportunities and Rural Economies grant to do a preliminary architectural report on the facility. And we're very excited about it. This was a project that Bear Paw Development assisted you with. Not to, toot my own
Toot your
horn,
own
but
horn.
I
Toot it, girl.
may have worked with you guys and submitted it. So, can you talk a little bit about this project and what you're hoping to come out of it?
Yeah, we can. So first off, a big thank you to Bear Paw Development for helping with the project. We are very grateful for that. Um, so the project is, as you were saying, a preliminary architecture report to kind of get an idea of how to expand our museum to better educate and better be a place for research for the general public and for scientists. Um, the idea is that it will kind of help grow a little bit more of the commerce of the area by making ourselves a little bit more of a larger museum to kind of accommodate more things. Um, that obviously looks nice and kind of garners interest from the general public. And then, as we were talking about earlier, of course, that brings in more people coming in through the area to kind of give Malta more commerce and economic opportunities. So, with that, we petitioned the Montana Department of Commerce to get this grant, an Opportunities in Rural Economics grant, and we were able to get it. So big thank you to the Montana Department of Commerce again as well, who even said like this kind of project helps rural Montana areas grow, and that it'll be a big boost for tourism and strengthen local economies. And that is again the very much what we are trying to do. But we also want to give a thank you to all the support we got from local businesses, from the city, and even the county for just being able to kind of come together with us, rally, and just talk about how both the community and our museum are so interlaced and how it would be important for both of us to be able to have this expansion. And so we were able to get the funds for that. And so now we'll have a architect kind of look in and see how feasible it is to be able to expand. And that's a big thing that our museum board really wants to kind of put an emphasis on, is that the feasibility of, like, how much this is gonna cost and how much it's going to, how much land and area we'll need to be able to use for it, and the actual the practicality of that will happen, is something that we are very much taking into thought, and especially that the museum board is being very, very particular about, so that we can make sure that this is done quickly, easily, and efficiently, so that as soon as we can start bringing in more commerce and more economic opportunities through tourism for the city and for the county, we do so as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Julia and I have kind of talked about like how this whole process works in previous episodes, just working in economic development and things like that. But preliminary architectural report doesn't really sound like much to, I think, anybody out there. They're like, I don't understand what this is, but this is a crucial step whenever a facility like this wants to expand or improve their operations. Because I would love to say that, if somebody wants to do this big project, that we can just go write a grant and secure it. But believe it or not, state, federal, and other funding agencies are not keen to throw a lot of money at a project unless there's a lot of planning that goes in behind it. So, this report is that first step that you guys need in order to secure the big funds and implement these changes. And we can't even apply for those other grants without having this document. So,
Exactly.
it's huge. It's a first step, but it's an exciting step.
It is, and I don't think anybody likes the planning process. You don't get to see a lot of things being done, but it is just so important to have. And we really always appreciate anybody that has the patience to go through that. So thank you to your board for understanding that, and for putting in the work to get this done. Also, Sarah, how many museums get these types of grants?
Hoofda. So museums are hard to fund. We were trying to go some more traditional funding sources. This is not the first grant I have submitted for the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum, and the emphasis on the state was really about like public safety and critical infrastructure. So they were like, "This is a really cool project, but we can't prioritize it over public safety." And I was like, I get it, but like again, it's a really cool project. So this opportunities in rural economies, or the OR grant is what we call it. Um, we jumped at it. When that came out, when they announced that they were doing it, I was like, this is what we need, because this project, you're right, it doesn't factor into public safety or anything like that, but like it really does stimulate the local rural economy. And it's still important. Public safety obviously is important, but like, come on, we need to be able to fund these projects too. So,
Yeah,
it's
and
huge.
I feel like, especially within the last 5 years, Department of Commerce and really all funding agencies have been so focused on my side of the work.
She's getting all the glory
I
lately.
am, I am. Yeah, they've been so focused on water and wastewater that these types of projects have kind of been left behind. So this is when Sarah called me to tell me that you guys got this grant, I jumped for joy too because I was just so excited to see something like this get funded. I'm very, very excited for you.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things where, as you were saying, it's very important to have the planning done. And as much as, you're like, "Oh, man, I really wanna jump into it," public safety is important, like, getting the plans, getting the site figured out, getting the design of the site figured out, getting the operational aspects getting figured out, and then, of course, the cost also figured out
Yeah.
on
You don't know
top
how
of
much
that.
to ask for unless you
Yeah.
have something saying this is how much it's going to cost.
Exactly. So that's why PAR is so important, because it allows us to, again, do this in a way that won't take away from public safety, but will also still be able to be fruitful for our museum. Because obviously, again, like our big thing, whether that's the board, whether that's myself, whether that's even just our paleontology intern that we had this summer, or our museum manager, is that we are having this museum for both scientific research and for the benefit of the public. And being able to have a well-designed new area does both of those things on top of also kind of, segueing into allowing for public safety for other city and statewide and even federal, concerns to be assuaged. So you have to have something like that, and that's so important that we got it, and that's why we're all very excited.
I always love the quote, "A job worth doing is a job worth doing well." And a PAR, PERs, any of those planning documents are the way that you do it well. You do it right the first time, so you don't have to do it again later.
And one of the things coming up specifically for the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum, that was mentioned in the application quite a bit. It was mentioned in a lot of conversations I've had over. I mean, this project, just getting this funding, has been a couple years in the making. Can you talk a little bit about? Is it Leonardo? Is that the?
Leonardo.
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier about stars of the museum, and I figured we might segue back to Leo, which is why I didn't mention Leonardo. But Leonardo is in many way the crown jewel of the museum. Um, Leo is a mummified dinosaur, and one of the greatest things we can boast about Leo is that Leo is a Guinness World Record-winning mummified dinosaur, where 90% of the soft tissue was preserved on the remains.
90%?
Yeah.
It's like an actual dinosaur.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some of the greatest features of Leo are things that are super rare in the fossil record that you almost never find are just like right there on Leo, that being skin, that being muscle fibers, that being stomach contents, that being even the keratin, the same stuff that makes up our fingernails and our hair, on the hoof. Yes, they have a hoof, and the bill. So, Leo is a fascinating specimen. Currently, the original material for Leonardo is at the Fukui Prefectural Dinosaur Museum, which is another cool thing because like a lot of people don't know this, but that is a big help with scientific and international relations. Us working with the Fukui Prefectural Dinosaur Museum in Japan allows for just a good relationship between two museums, but also like it's work that we had to do with a whole nother country on being able to have this dinosaur. So they're helping us with the preparatory work and doing some research and CT scanning on it. And then Leo will return to Malta better looking than it even is right now and able to give education to the public. But it also like again, going back to this commerce thing, there will be people in Japan who got to hear about Leo, got to see, like, some of the preparatory work being done on Leo, and will be excited to see it in Malta, Montana, and, so it's very cool to be able to have a specimen like that. Another important thing about Leo is that it allows for a lot of in-country research to be done on a specimen that is, again, so fascinating that it really needs to be talked about and worked on, so um, Leonardo is a crown jewel, another wonderful thing that came out of the Hammond Ranch. So once again, thank you for the Hammonds. Um, and we are just absolutely excited to be able to expand the museum and be able to give Leo even more of the grandiose kind of display that Leonardo deserves because it definitely does deserve it. Like I said, in some ways, it's the crown jewel of our museum. So
The crown jewel of paleontology in general.
Yeah, that
in
is
many
so
ways.
amazing. Do they know, I mean, how he was mummified so, perfectly?
The current belief is that something akin to a flash flood would have come through the area, so what that does is that it buries the animal in a lot of sediment, that being just kinda like broken up rock and sand and other kind of detritus, covering the animal very quickly, so that allows for the fossilization process to kick off really quickly, without the oxygen in the area, it doesn't have as much decomposition for the, soft tissue, and covering it really deeply, really quickly means that scavengers can't get to it and rip it apart and destroy up the bones and the skin, so, um, it just helped the fossil to be perfectly mummified, so
It's
That's
kind of macabre
amazing.
to think about, like, we're sitting here talking about how fascinating it is that this is so perfectly preserved, and then when you ask the question, like, "How is it so perfectly preserved?" "Oh, it had a horrific death."
Yeah.
Like,
now,
it's
to be
just a
fair
It
horrible way to
was
die.
terrible.
Now, to be fair, we actually believe that Leo was probably past tense, um, when Leo got covered by this black
Oh,
slug.
Okay.
okay. So
So
I like to
so
think he died of old age, like sipping a nice tea and like thinking
Yes.
fondly of all of his years.
He was sitting in his hot tub
Leo
and
was an adult or a teenager, so
I just ruined my days.
yeah,
well,
well,
he was probably Leonardo DiCaprio in Romeo and Juliet and died of a broken heart.
Don't be so ridiculous.
mhm. But Leo was probably Leonardo DiCaprio levels of handsome for a Brachylophosaurus, and it's definitely so for the scientific community right now. So to give a little positive spin to such a tragic end.
Our boss is gonna hate me for this, but
When does he not hate us for this podcast?
we had a group of leadership high school students compare him to Leonardo DiCaprio, and now I'm gonna tell him that means he looks like a dinosaur.
You're welcome.
welcome.
That's what he gets for refusing to take us to New York.
I agree.
Yeah.
But it is also a world record winning dinosaur, just as a reminder. So something to keep in mind and something to be proud of is that if you're going to compare to any dinosaur, the one who won a world record is probably a good one to
Leonardo
compare
seems
to.
to be an accomplished specimen. A
Yeah,
diplomat, a Guinness World Record holder. Like Leo's doing some things.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
How big is he?
Oh goodness. Well, Leonardo's missing a significant portion of the tail, but if I remember correctly, the last estimate would have been around 15 feet long, which
Wow.
is actually not all that big for a Brachylophosaurus. Roberta, if Roberta is also missing a significant portion of the tail, but if Roberta had the entire tail, it'd probably be around a 30-foot long specimen.
Holy.
So,
All right, so bigger than my 7-pound dog.
yes.
So, just looking back, since your time here in Malta is kind of coming to an end, sadly. What are some fond memories you hold? Not just from working in the museum this summer, but living in our Highline, living in our Bear Paw region. That's kind of what we're here for.
Oh, some of the fond memories? Gosh, there are so many. I think one of the cool ones was one of the ones off of the bat that really sticks out to me again is just that little girl being able to find a dinosaur tooth, a tyrannosaur tooth, as the first dinosaur fossil ever. Only to come back to the museum later and be like, "Oh, like I'm learning bone identification and actually being extremely interested in paleontology." Going out to our digs, we had a Navy veteran who loves the armored dinosaurs, the ankylosaurs, and was just like, "Oh, if I get to see even just like a bit of an ankylosaur fossil, this would have been the greatest kind of thing that I've done in a while." And well, we actually found an ankylosaur tooth out there. So,
Wow.
getting to see the look on his face when we found an ankylosaur tooth, and at first he was kind of upset that he didn't find it, but then he thought about it. He's like, "Well, I do get to see one for sure," and then getting that big smile on his face was fantastic. Um, Being able to go to all the different events here in Phillips County, from rodeos to the Roar and Explore event that we put on here at the museum, and having so many different people kind of come through and talk about dinosaurs with them, and get to have them be like, "Well, why are you in town?" "Oh, well, I work at the dinosaur museum." "Oh, really? What do you do?" "Well, I'm director of paleontology."
No big deal.
um, and then being able to have so many cool conversations about that, and getting to see again Malta as a city and Phillips County as a county, the amount of interest and the amount of love that the museum gets is something that you rarely see. So it's all been very wonderful. Also the food here,
We like to eat up on the Highline.
yes, and coming from Texas, which is a very, very good place for cuisine, I was a little worried, like, "Oh man, like rural Montana holds up." Actually, and as much as the inner Texan in me pains to say it, just as much as Texas does, with like
Wow.
3 times the population in Texas too. So you guys are really putting in work out here.
Love Montana. Pat yourself on the back.
I often do.
I
Uh,
often do.
to astonish at my ability to eat up here. So
There's some good food. I'm not a huge traveler, so I haven't gone around everywhere, but I like the food up here. So what's next for you? You said you are finishing up your master's degree?
Yeah, yeah. The current goal and the hope is that I'd finish this fall, and get my master's, and then from there, gosh, PhD somewhere, go on for a doctoral program.
Wow.
And kind of depending on how quickly that would happen, would kind of entail whether or not I was able to come back here for a full summer again for the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum. But I tell you right now, if they say fall 2026, then you will see me here summer 2026 at the Great Plains because I love this job and I love the area. And then from there, gosh, now that I've been director of paleontology at a museum, again, thank you, shout out to the board for giving me that title. Um, I could be curator or director at another museum sometime in the future. I might come back to the Great Plains if they let me back. Hint, hint, Anne, please, in the future. Also could hopefully go on to be a tenure professor, but I got to get the degrees first for that. So we're kinda taking that part one step at a time, getting the master's first and then the PhD, but afterwards, the sky's kind of the limit here in paleontology, so
Oh man, I mean, with how passionate you are on your way.
Right.
This has been an absolutely fantastic conversation.
well, thank you, I appreciate that, and you guys have also, been wonderful to converse with, great questions, really helped put the museum in a great light for the community, and we always love that, so thank you all so much for having, myself to be able to exemplify the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum because definitely a museum worth hearing about, but on a podcast worth listening to, right?
I would
Hey,
hope so.
heck yeah.
Well, a huge thank you to Jeremiah for joining us, and also thank you to the board for letting us borrow you for some time this afternoon. It was so fun to get to chat with you. And if you haven't been to the museum yet, make sure you plan a trip to Malta. Jeremiah will tell you where to go to eat. He's got all the good ideas there. And it like Julie and I were able to wander around here when we got here. It's really incredible experience.
It really is. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and tune in next time as we share more stories about the people, projects, and opportunities that make North Central Montana such a special place to call home.
And as always, thanks for bearing with us.
That's wonderful.